Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, episode 137, Ancient Telepathy and Desire Creates Monoculture. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters, and today I have Bright Star with me. Today I will discuss Ancient Telepathy and Desire Creates Monoculture. So, how does this work? Well, with Ancient Telepathy, I'm going to discuss it more in the terms that actually predates mankind himself, when mankind was still spirit beings. Then I'll see how it was with ancient humans. Also, later on in the program, I'll examine Desire Creates Monoculture. This segment was inspired by a program I recently seen on public TV about monoculture. So, and of course we're talking about monoculture in terms of agriculture. Anyway, so let's go off and dive into ancient telepathy. Okay, in the distant past, I guess as far back in time as we could go in a sense, or maybe not quite that far back, but far enough back where God was unified with the angels. And this is before the fall of Lucifer. We're talking about everything, God and the angels being truly unified in every way. This must have been very spectacular indeed. I'm looking down at Bright Star. There she is. She wants to jump up. Now she is up. Oh, but typically the show features Rose. But this week I am featuring Bright Star. Bright Star looks similar to Rose. Anyway, so with this idea of ancient telepathy, well, we have the concept of us being all unified with God. So we do have telepathy because there is no individuals. Well, there might have been angels, but the angels didn't see themselves as individuals, or at least I'm assuming they didn't. At this point, they saw themselves as more unified with God, in communication with God in every way, constantly. So this was all like one giant shared pool of knowledge and ability and love. It must have been very spectacular indeed. Well, at one point, one angel shone above the rest. One angel was, in a sense, God's favorite, Lucifer. Lucifer, because of this admiration by God and all the angels, acquired pride. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because as I said before, the angels really, I'm assuming, they didn't really see themselves as individuals. And this might be the first formation or inkling of the formation of the individual came with the sense of pride, because what are you proud of? You would have to be proud of yourself. And so, and once you're proud of yourself, you're saying you're an individual and you're separate from all the rest. So I guess that's how Lucifer saw himself. He saw himself as an individual. And in fact, he separated with God, taking a legion or legions of angels with him. Anyway, So once we have that situation, we have this creation of at least a dichotomy, and a situation where things are no longer unified. So we have this polarization. Um, so with this polarization of God and his angels and Lucifer's and his angels, well, who are now demons, I guess, and we start, maybe by then the angels start seeing themselves more as individuals, and Lucifer sees himself, herself, as an individual. And so we have this sense that we're individuals. And what I'm assuming is the other angels, they probably didn't like the idea of Lucifer separating. And so they might have saw his pride as being inappropriate. His pride was excessive. He was seeing himself as an individual, something never done before. And because Lucifer was seeing himself as an individual, seeing himself as an individual, the other angels, the ones who were on God's side, well, saw this. They were shaming Lucifer. They saw his pride as inappropriate. So Lucifer was ashamed of his pride. Lucifer wanted to hide his pride. Lucifer wanted to hide his thoughts. This was almost impossible since there was total and constant telepathy. But he did his best and started the concept of having individual thoughts with non-telepathy. Of course, God and the angels could always guess his next move, but he did, at least at a start, or at least to a limited degree, have his own thoughts, and thus became the concept of the individual. Well, once there's a concept of the individual, there's a concept of time and space. For it is God's will and the individual that creates time and space. So before, everything was unified in this grand unified state of equilibrium. Well, I guess once Lucifer fell, there was this sense of turbulence. But still, everything was in a continuous state, whether was or is, I'll get to that later, no time and space. So with no time and space, everything was unified. Now, because there's individuals, God created time and space in materiality. So I get, or perhaps a combination of God and Satan created this materiality. These ideas are inspired by Edgar Cayce. He had similar ideas to this. So we have God becoming material, because everything is God. Everything is an expression of God, including God, the angels, the demons, the imaginary territories, and ourselves. So all of this, all of us separating from God, well, it all started with Lucifer, but perhaps it's more than that. Perhaps it's kind of a grand experiment by God to see how we interact, to see how we interact with angels and demonic forces, and how they might influence us. But we have to look at this from another perspective too. In theory, the demons may not be there. In theory, the demons might be within ourselves and created